When my own family turned my home against me, I chose myself and found freedom. Growing up, I was no stranger to my mother's favoritism. If you asked anyone in our neighborhood, they'd tell you I was the responsible one, the one with good sense. My sister Hannah, however, was my mother's little girl, even as we grew older. Every decision seemed to center around her happiness, her comfort, and her future. For years, I chalked it up to the typical younger sibling treatment, but deep down, I always wished my mother could see me too. After years of working myself to the bone, I finally saved up enough to buy a house, my dream house. It wasn't much by some standards, but to me, it was a palace, every corner a testament to my hard work and resilience. I poured myself into making it a haven, carefully choosing everything from the wall colors to the throw pillows, personal touches that made it feel truly mine. Then came the wedding announcement. Hannah had married her boyfriend Jake, a guy who, if I'm being honest, I'd never been particularly close to. He always struck me as charming but insincere. Still, family's family, and when my mother suggested that the newlyweds move in with me temporarily until they found their own place, I reluctantly agreed. "Just a few weeks," she assured me. I told myself it wouldn't be so bad. After all, what's family for if not to support one another? But as the moving truck rolled in and they unpacked a small mountain of luggage, a sinking feeling began to gnaw at me. They brought enough belongings for what looked like a permanent stay, and within days, they spread out across my home. Hannah's beauty products littered the bathroom counter, Jake's gaming consoles took over the living room, and my once serene kitchen now had their favorite snacks crowding my shelves. It felt suffocating, but when I voiced my discomfort, my mother would brush it off with her classic response: "It's only temporary, honey. Don't be so rigid." But then the small compromises started to feel like complete upheavals. One evening, my mother came by to visit. After a brief catch-up, she brought up a topic I wasn't prepared for. She suggested, quite casually, that I give up my own bedroom for Hannah and Jake. They're newlyweds, after all. They need the space, the privacy, she said. I stared at her, speechless. This was my home, my sanctuary, and she was suggesting that I move out of my room, my room. I tried to explain how this made me feel, but she was firm. "You're the older sister, and they need this more than you do," she insisted, as if her words were law. I felt a pang of frustration and anger, but I swallowed it down. Years of being the good daughter had taught me to keep my feelings under wraps. So I moved my things into my tiny home office, setting up a makeshift bedroom. The desk became my nightstand, and I stuffed my clothes into a small drawer that I'd cleared. I'd gone from having a cozy, peaceful retreat to sleeping in a cramped office, while my sister and Jake basked in the comfort of my room. And the worst part? They didn't seem to see anything wrong with it. Hannah and Jake took full advantage of their new space. They redecorated my bedroom without even asking, painting the walls and rearranging furniture as if it were theirs. When I walked in one day to find them changing the curtains, I felt my stomach tighten. I couldn't take it anymore. I tried confronting Hannah about it, asking her to at least keep some of my things in place, but she only laughed and said, "Come on, sis. It's just decor. We want it to feel like home." Home, I thought bitterly. This was supposed to be my home. As the days passed, I felt like a stranger in my own house. It was a peculiar feeling, seeing my hard work and personal space being taken over with no say in it. One evening, I overheard my mother and Hannah chatting in the kitchen. My mother was laughing, saying how it felt like old times, with all of us together. She even mentioned that she wished this could be a permanent setup, a true family home. The words stung, each one a reminder of how my feelings didn't seem to matter in this family dynamic. But I had a secret they didn't know about. To my family, I was just a regular employee at a corporate job. But the truth was, over the past few years, I'd started a small online business that had grown steadily and brought in a comfortable income. It was something I'd kept quiet, partly because I wanted to surprise my family someday, but mostly because I wanted to avoid any judgment or advice about what I should do with my success, With my business flourishing, I realized I had more than enough savings to find another place, a new sanctuary, far from the chaos that had invaded my life. I began searching for a condo in the city, and within weeks, I found a beautiful place that felt like it was meant just for me. It was spacious, modern, and, most importantly, it was mine. But before moving out, I had to make a decision. I could quietly pack up and disappear, leaving them to figure things out, or I could confront them. In the end, I decided that they didn't deserve an explanation. So, I left a simple note on the kitchen counter that said, "The house is yours. I've moved on." The morning after I moved, my phone lit up with missed calls from my mother. I didn't answer. I spent my first day in my new condo in peace, finally able to breathe, without the weight of compromise and concession hanging over me. I took a long bath, unpacked, and decorated each room with care. My sanctuary was back, better than before. Days later, my mother managed to reach me. Her voice was filled with shock, frustration, and a hint of guilt. She couldn't understand why I would abandon them. I listened as she lectured me about family loyalty and responsibilities. But this time, I didn't feel guilty. I simply replied, "I have done my part. Now it's time I take care of myself." Over the following months, I heard through the grapevine that Hannah and Jake struggled to maintain the house. They'd assumed that I'd be around to help with expenses, but when I left, they were forced to move out. My mother was apparently stunned, finally realizing that her actions had consequences. Living in my new condo, I found a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. I built new routines, met new friends, and best of all, learned to cherish my own company. My mother eventually tried to make amends, apologizing in a way that was more of a justification than an apology. But I had moved on. For the first time, I'd chosen myself, drawn a boundary, and stood by it. Through it all, I learned that self-respect sometimes means saying no to the people you love. I'd lost a part of myself trying to be the good daughter, and now I was reclaiming it. In choosing myself, I finally found the freedom I'd always longed for. When her mother's favoritism turns her own home into a place of compromise and sacrifice, she's forced to give up her room and sense of belonging to make way for her sister and brother-in-law. Feeling like a stranger in her own sanctuary, she faces a difficult choice: continue sacrificing for her family or reclaim her life on her own terms. As she steps away to start fresh, she learns the true meaning of self-respect and freedom, finally putting herself first after years of being the good daughter